Hey everybody, hope you're having a good Monday evening. It's becoming fall here in the Nashville area, and I have to say that probably fall and spring are my two favorite times. Spring because of all the things that are becoming new again, and fall just simply because it's a beautiful time of year, and it also tells us something about nature, the comings and goings of nature. Um, I want to talk to you tonight. Pardon me for just a minute. I'm trying to get my electronics to work. I want to talk about a couple different things, but it's going to center around my title, and that is, what do you know about that? And I think that's an important question that we need to start asking ourselves, especially in this day and time that we're facing right now, where people are kind of going nuts over this whole kneeling issue. Still has a tendency to just grate on me, because there's so many bigger problems that we've got to worry about than that. And I also want to try and keep this a little bit light, because I mean my whole being is dedicated now to helping people to get and stay positive, and that includes me. And it's difficult sometimes, because I get really heartsick when I see stuff going on. And I'm not going to tell you this to brag or to set myself in any kind of an authority, but it just seems that sometimes things are so clear to me. I think some of that probably has to do with the fact that I've experienced a lot of stuff in my life, and I have gone through many changes in my lifetime. Sometimes I wonder why it is that wisdom is bestowed on people of age. That's a politically correct way of saying old people. I don't like to refer to myself as an old person, but obviously I'm older than a 20-year-old, and I've seen more things than a 20-year-old. And I have kind of set my mission for the rest of my life to share some of those things, and if nothing else, just make people just stop and think for just a minute about what they're going through, and maybe see it in a different light. So tonight, based around that title, what do you know about that? That can be asked. That can be stated in two different ways. One, here in the South, and although I'm born and raised part of my life in Michigan, so I've got a little bit of Yankee ingenuity in me, but I've also been in the South for over 50 years, so sometimes that tends to take precedence. So here's the two ways. You could say, like if somebody says something to you that just kind of startles you or takes you by surprise or amazes you, you would say, well, what do you know about that? Then there is just the plain question that you might ask yourself, or you might ask another person, what do you know about that? So somewhere in between is where I want to land tonight, because I hope that maybe a couple things that I'm going to tell you is going to make you go, well, what do you know about that? And then you might have instance to pause and just ask yourself, what do I know about that? So that's the stage we're working on. One of my favorite philosophers, and whenever I've been fortunate enough to speak to a public group, and everybody wants an introduction. So part of my introduction is that I try to be a half-fast philosopher, and part of that is tongue-in-cheek, because if you say that fast or quickly, let me put it that way, if you say that phrase quickly, you're probably going to hit somewhere closer to the reality of that statement. But anyway, one of my favorite philosophers has been and always will be Will Rogers. Hey Ken, glad you got on. Will Rogers made the statement, we are all ignorant. We are just ignorant about different things. I've heard that statement made in different forms, but that's supposed to be the quote that actually was made, or the statement that was made by Will Rogers. So I want you to think about that for a minute. We are all ignorant. We're just ignorant on different subjects. Now, to really understand that, I think it's important that you understand the word and the definition of the word ignorant or ignorance. I think as a kid, I grew up with the misguided understanding that to tell someone that they were ignorant was paramount to saying you're stupid. And part of the definition of ignorant does have something to do with intelligence. But my form that I want to talk about, the part of the word ignorant that I want to talk about is just the fact that if you are unknowledgeable about a subject, you are ignorant about that subject. For example, I downloaded and tried to read a book about astronomy. It was written by, I can't even think of as Neil deGrasse, and I can't remember his last name. But anyway, it was so far above my head that I may have made through one chapter, and then I had to quit because it was just, he was talking about stuff, and this was kind of like the astronomy for dummies. So, I really felt encouraged when I couldn't even understand the dummy version. But anyway, so I want to concentrate on just that one part of that definition, and that part is that we are all ignorant. We may be ignorant about different things. You may be knowledgeable about astronomy. I may not be. So that makes me ignorant about astronomy. Whatever. You may be ignorant on a subject that I can talk fluently about. Ken was one of my favorite customers when I was in the barbecue business, and I think he will back me up on this, but I could tell you an awful lot about how to smoke a brisket or a pork butt or ribs. I could talk for days on that. Probably wouldn't tell you nothing new, but I could tell you everything that I know. So the point is that we have to understand what it is we're ignorant about and what it is that we are knowledgeable about. And I'm going to make this statement right now that most of us are ignorant about what's really going on around us. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't even subscribe to that genre, but we have no clue. And that's good to a certain extent because we don't really need a clue. We need to live our lives the best that we can and come out on the end with being rewarded for doing a good job at being a human being. And I don't think that you can be good at that job by knowing too much about what's going on around us. I feel sorry for some people sometimes. So I also want to pass along a little bit of a poetry to you, and this is actually the song lyrics to a song that's written by Rodney Crowell. Living here in the Nashville area, we are exposed to a lot of songwriters and musicians and that. And Rodney Crowell has been one of my favorites for many, many years. But this song that he wrote is called "Ignorance is the Enemy." And if you've not read that or have not heard that song, Google it, because you need to hear it, and you need to listen to every word that's sung. Now, I've taken the liberty of cutting out a little bit of the chorus line because just in the interest of time. But anyway, this is called this is called "Ignorance is the Enemy." Ignorance is the enemy, and it fills your head with lies. It's the kind of bliss that you can miss the very truth before your eyes. It's not who's right or wrong, weak or strong, black or white, you see. Ignorance is the enemy, and it's keeping you from me. Forgive me all my pettiness. Forgive me all my greed. Forgive me, for I know not how to live this life I lead. Ignorance is the enemy. Let's set the record straight. If history must repeat itself, why worry while you wait? It's a perfect blue and beautiful world you treat with such disdain. Ignorance is the enemy, and it can only bring you pain. Forgive me all my vanity. Forgive me my conceit. Forgive me when I'm crawling like a beggar at your feet. Ignorance is the enemy, and it wields a mighty sword. It can cut you down in a blaze of glory. It can nail you to a board. If mercy and compassion only had a chance, it could fill these holes we've dug. But ignorance is the enemy, and it's working like a drug. The first time I heard that song, it just bowled me over. It's actually, if you do listen to it, it's a spoken poem with music, but it's not sung as in melodic. It's and it's spoken by many different artists. Emmylou Harris is on there, and a couple other very well-known songwriters and singers, and it's just the most powerful thing I've ever heard because it's so true. We allow too many things to get in the way of you and I relating to each other. And we allow too much misinformation to enter into our minds and become what we see as fact. When in fact, it's just misinformation. And I'm going to give you a couple examples. I downloaded to my Kindle the other day a copy of the Quran because I'd never read it. So I didn't know what was in it. I've heard things about it that that obviously would disturb anyone. But like the Bible, it's a book that I think is very misunderstood. I think if you were Muslim, for example, and you were reading the Bible, you could read some things in there that would cause you to take pause and to maybe make you a little fearful of people that profess a belief in the Bible. But the thing that hit me, and I've read about half of it right now, and to be honest with you, I've not found anything written in that book that alarms me any more than reading in the Old Testament that we should stone our children if they, and I'm not talking about marijuana stone, I'm talking about throwing actual rocks at them when they're disobedient, or cutting off a person's hand if they steal something. So, you know, it's still written in that time frame, or actually it's written much later than the Bible was written, but still it has that same type of thing. The thing I think that really struck me more than anything else is, number one, they believe, or I won't say they, I will say the Quran teaches that Jesus was born of a virgin, Mary. They obviously do not see Jesus in the same way that a Christian sees Jesus. And we get a lot of, we hear a lot of rhetoric that's designed to make us fear other people. So, you know, we hear things about Muslims as though they do not believe in the same God that we believe in. And I'm sure if there's a minister, pastor that happens to pass by this, they're going to probably jump stiff-legged, because that's not true. The best that I can tell, that is not true. I've never had anything presented to me that makes me believe that that's not true. And I'm going to tell you a couple things that, if you don't know, might take you a little bit by surprise. If you do know, then I'd advise you to go back and take another look, and a little deeper look. I'd like to welcome Michelle and Kelly on here. Anyway, the basic information that I'm obtaining from reading the Quran is that their principles are basically the same as ours, and this is the reason why. If you go back in history and you read your Bible history, and this is actually in our Christian Bible, Abraham had two sons. His first son was what we would consider an illegitimate son. It was born of his wife's handmaiden, and that was Ishmael. Ishmael was Abraham's son. Abraham was the first person in recorded history of any type that demonstrated a belief in a singular God. A monotheist is what they're called. Just instead of believing in multiple gods, as a lot of people did at his time, he believed in one. He taught his children to do that. Obviously, as a parent, he's going to pass that information down to him. God even told Abraham to not worry about Ishmael, that he was going to make him into a mighty nation with 12 rulers or countries. Now, there are other scriptures that talk about the fact that Ishmael was going to constantly be in conflict with Abraham's other side of his family. But the fact remains is Ishmael was raised by Abraham, and there is no reason for me to believe that he changed his mind about who he believed in. So they may refer to God as Allah, just as Jehovah's Witnesses refer to God as Jehovah instead of just God. The Jews and the Hebrews refer to God in different forms, Elohim or Elohim, and many other ways. So it's kind of ludicrous to me to believe that if you believe in one God, and we believe in one God, and we believe that there's only one God. So how many gods can somebody believe in if they only believe in one, and there is only one? So we kind of let that get into our minds sometimes, and I think it pushes us apart. But there's several other things, and I would encourage you, if you are a reasonable, intelligent human being, and you're not afraid, get a copy of the Quran and read it. Nothing else, information. It helps you to understand people and understand what their culture was and how it has developed. And you'll also learn that not all Muslims believe the same way that Osama bin Laden taught or any of the other radical Muslims teach. No more so than you and I believe that the Westboro Baptist Church is preaching Christianity when they protest at the funerals of veterans, and their website is God Hates Fags. I mean, how much more ignorant could you be than that? And all I'm encouraging you to do is just do a little bit of investigation, do a little bit of reading before you go off and start telling things about people that you don't even know. As the poem, if you didn't catch the poem, or the song "Ignorance is the Enemy," it says that ignorance is keeping you from me, and that's exactly what's happening with us today. We're allowing people in Washington, D.C., and we're allowing the talking heads on news channels to tell us things that we're taking to be facts, when in fact they're not. I mean, we're living in a time when the term fake news is common. I mean, if in the 1950s, if you'd have said, well, that's fake news, everybody would have laughed at you, especially if you were listening to Walter Cronkite. But today, fake news is just like, oh, that's fake news. Ain't no big deal. It is a big deal. Fake anything is a big deal. Because if it's fake, it's putting a barrier between you and I. Now we have another barrier that keeps popping up, and it's the barrier between black and white. And I don't even want to entertain the concept that this is a new problem that we're experiencing. Obviously, if you're a child of the 50s, you understand that this is not a new problem. This is an old problem. But you know what? I saw this. I saw this show yesterday, and pardon me for having a senior moment right now, but I'm trying to remember who it was that said that. But this is the point I want to leave you with, or not leave you with, but I want you to grasp this. We cannot make the world perfect in our lifetime or anyone else's lifetime. I mean, if you believe the teaching of Christianity, you know that that's not ever going to be achieved until, as most people believe, until something catastrophic comes, whether you believe it's Jesus coming back or how you believe that. I've said for years that we as a society, we don't react to anything until it is so big that we can't do anything about it. And then suddenly we are just all afire, that we've got to stop all of this. Well, it doesn't mean don't try to stop it. It means make sure your expectations are correct, because if they're not, you're going to be terribly disappointed as life goes on. So we may not be able to make racism go away. We cannot mend all of the fences between African Americans and Caucasian Americans, or Latino Americans, or Chinese Americans, or whatever. We might not be able to solve all of that in my lifetime or your lifetime. But as this person, and it's probably going to hit me as soon as I turn this camera off, who it was that said it, but says you may not be able to solve it, but you can make it better. Perfect example is the situation of race in our country right now. If you go back a few years, and some of you will remember the civil rights era and what was going on during that period of time, and how grossly terrible things were here in the South between African Americans and white Americans. Now, so you come up to today, and we're not living in a perfect time, but it's a hell of a lot better than it was in the 50s. You know, if you look around today, just walk through the mall, you're going to see couples, mixed race couples that are married. You're going to see families that are blended in ways that we've never seen before. In the 1950s and 60s, if a black man and a white woman were to try and get married here in the South, they would probably both end up at the end of a rope. That doesn't happen today. At least if it does, it doesn't make the news. So things are better. They're just not perfect. And we can't sit back and say to ourselves and our family that it's never going to be perfect, so why even try? Well, I just can't live that way. It makes my heart sick to see the things that are going on today, because it seems as if we make strides to correct these things, and then suddenly we go back 3 or 4 steps, and that's just unconscionable to me that we could do that. I've been practicing mindfulness and in my daily life. One of the things that I've done fairly consistently, and I won't say that I've done it every day, because that would be pulling your leg. But I started a gratitude journal, and I make a point to write down at least 3 things every day that I'm grateful for. And one of the books that I'm reading, and if you saw some of my posts today on Facebook, one of them says, "I will greet this day with love in my heart." And that comes out of the book, The World's Greatest Salesman by Og Mandino. So today I'm driving into town and headed over to Hendersonville, Tennessee, which is another suburb of Nashville. And there's always, at this one intersection, there's always homeless people there. So I'm pulling up to this light, and I make eye contact with this person. And you know, sometimes I, like you, probably get the impression that, or the suspicion that things aren't quite what it seems. But I got to tell you, this person looked at me, and I looked at him, and the compassion just nearly brought me to tears. And I never carried much cash, but I was sitting there thinking, man, I wish I had some money I could pass along to this gentleman. And then I remembered this bag of coins that we keep. A lot of times when we have change, we would stick it in this Ziploc bag. And I remembered that being in my glove box. And I told the guy, I said, this is not much, but it's truly the only thing I've got on me today. And the smile on his face let me know that it was enough, because it wasn't the amount of money that I was giving him. It was the fact that I was compassionate enough to give it to him. Now, a lot of times we get caught up in that. We try and analyze a person. I've caught myself looking around at different times to see if I could see their car. Just crazy stuff that goes on in your head. But if you are a person of any faith, we are taught, any faith, I'm telling you, you can search this, and I will not be proven wrong. Any faith today has a belief or a tenet that we are supposed to love our brother as we love ourselves. And I have said this many times. I don't practice it all the time, but our job is not to set limits on what those gifts that we're handing out to another person is. We can't set limits as to what they do with it, because that's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to be a giver, not a manager. We're not managing humanity. We're called to give and to be that person. If we're the only person that shows that individual that we love them, just for them being them, then we're just missing the whole boat. I can't really understand why a person would want to even go to church and to study the Bible, or to study the Quran, or to study the Book of Mormon, or any the Hindu teachings, the Tao Te Ching. There's no point in doing all that. There's no point in reading that if you're not going to do what it tells you to do. And if we are not givers, we are not doing what we're supposed to do. One of the things that I think we as a people, not Americans, I'm talking about earthly inhabitants, is we need to work on our compassion and our love. We need to ignore the hate and the fear and all the stuff that's being passed down to us, and we need to work on compassion. We need to work on loving. Just loving, not just loving another person, but loving everything around you, loving the grass that's in your yard, and really connecting with the fact that that's a gift to us. Everything around us is a gift. It can be taken away at any moment. But we take it for granted too many times, and we fail to pass along our gratitude to those we come in contact with. I wrote a sentence here in my notes, and it says, gratitude does not put one over the other. And that is what I'm saying there, is that you can't be grateful and feel like you're better than somebody else. Or you can't be grateful, truly grateful, for the things that you have, and to talk down on anyone. Well, that's my my alarm system here that's telling me I'm dragging on, and I'm sorry that I do that, but sometimes things just get in my head and I've got to get them out. So I want to leave you with this question, and then also one statement. I want to leave you with the question: who do you listen to? Do you listen to the news? Do you listen to the people at work that are talking about Muslims or Hispanics or blacks or whites or whatever? Do you listen to them, or do you follow the instructions that we have? And again, if you're a Christian, that's going to be the Bible. If you're Muslim, that's going to be the Quran. If you're Hindu, I have trouble with the word, but their one of their holy books is called the Bhagavad Gita, I think, and I've just probably murdered that word, so please don't send me hate mail on that one. But anyway, regardless of what your holy book is, that's your instruction book. And in this day and age, everything is at our fingertips. You can research anything in a matter of seconds. So don't be ignorant. That's the statement I want to leave you with. Do not be ignorant, because ignorance is the enemy. And as Rodney Crowell's song ends, it's working like a drug. So, who do you listen to? And don't be ignorant. And I hope that I haven't bored you with all the different things. I tried to warn you when I was giving my little advertisement about my Facebook Live tonight. These are random. Some of these are just random thoughts, but they're important thoughts to me, and I want to pass them on to you, because I want you to be a better person. I want to be a better person. I want you to teach your children to be a better person. And I want you to do everything in your power to make the world around you, and that if you take that and just spread that from your house to your community, to your schools, to your workplace, whatever, make a difference. Make a difference in somebody's life. First, make a difference in yours. Then make a difference in somebody else's life. And I appreciate the heck out of you guys taking time to sit here and listen to me. Please feel free to leave me any comment that you want. I tell you just every time that I'm a big boy, so I can take criticism. The only thing I ask of you is that you keep your comments civil. Just, don't use words that you wouldn't want turned back on you. You can disagree with me, but be civil about it. But think about what I'm saying. That's all I'm asking. Just think about what I'm saying. And tomorrow when you wake up, give thanks for all the things that you have, and make a difference. Love everybody. Bye.